crazy, Malin. I'm, I'm not crazy, Malin. I've just been in a very bad mood for 40 years. 40 years.
Carpe diem. Carpe diem.
Hard to believe that it's already Friday night once more, but of course with a Friday night comes the CGL Friday Night Overwatch as we step into the European Masters PC tier. Hello everyone, my name is Sam Tonks. I'm going to be your desk host for this evening. Of course, what is a desk without the amazing analysts here to help us break down everything that's going on? Joining me is Spectrion, Hunter Tane, and Soabdanam, very familiar faces. Gentlemen, how are we feeling this weekend? Are we excited for some Overwatch? Spectrion, we'll start with you since we missed you last week.
Yeah, I was busy, unfortunately, but we're back here doing the most important thing anyone can do, and that is watching Overwatch on a Friday night, of course, and game should be good. I'm excited for it. I cannot wait to go 0 for 2 in my predictions, and I can't wait for the rest of the desk to out-prep me.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Listen, we've been doing pretty good, right, Hunter? We got something going on. We got something cooking.
I'm 0-3. I don't know what you're talking about, Sam. I have yet to pull this off yet. Maybe today's the day, but you have me on.
I actually think you're the only one, Sam, with a correct prediction here. I think that's actually the case here.
Yes. It's all coming together. My master plan is finally all forming. So let's go ahead and actually talk about the two teams that we are going to be seeing today. We have Plate Group versus Ushi's Daycare, and what can only be described as a spectacular showing because these two teams, now let's work through this. It's going to be very careful here that I might be stepping into a landmine if I don't get this correctly. So they are vying for they are already in the top 4, but they're vying for higher seeds in what is going to be the top 4 in the mid-season playoffs here. So they don't have the pressure of needing to get into there, Soav, but they do want to get that higher seeding.
Yeah, as we all know, 4 is a larger number than 2, and we want to play towards smaller numbers. I know,
this is the
shocking revelation.
Right,
I know,
this is the analyst.
When you incredible, I know. But when you look at the outcome of this match, it's going to decide who's getting the number 2 seed, and that is arguably the most important thing going into this midseason playoffs. We're only taking the top 4, like you said. These 4 have already made it, but the real problem here is you don't want to come up against Pumpkins. 4-0 has not dropped a map. Absolutely not what you want to be doing in round 1. And the kind of statement to all this is that Plate Group has already taken a loss to Pumpkins. So they already understand what's ahead and understand the value of this match. So I think there is really, if they've done the math like we have, there is so much on this line in regards to potentially making it deeper into this playoff run.
And it really is that what it comes down to, right? Is being able to get as far as you possibly can, being able to, well, not have to go for that rematch against Pumpkins, not have to go against that Play Group. A lot on their shoulders here. Same for Ushi's Daycare. Both of these teams with 2 wins, but Play Group does have that 1 loss, Spectrion.
Yeah, that they do. A bit of a tarnish on the record there. Make it a little bit more awkward, but for Ushi's Daycare, another way of looking at it might be that they're still, a little bit untested. They might have not had their metal, fully pushed all the way to the limit. So, I mean, while it is a nice goose egg that they're sitting on in terms of the loss column, then that doesn't really tell us anything other than we don't have enough dots on our graph to, form any sort of correlation. Ushi's Daycare going to have to prove that they can bring the heat in this game today.
Especially now that we're starting to thaw out from winter. A little bit more heat, nothing wrong with that. So we are getting an idea of how the standings are looking. We're also getting an idea of the formulation of what the mid-season playoffs coming up are going to be looking like. We pretty much have our top 4 set up and ready to go. And so now let's go ahead and actually deep dive into the teams themselves. Hunter Tane, I think we should start off maybe with a Plague Group.
Yeah, Plague Group, who so far has done pretty nice things so far, being in that 2-1, which is nothing to scoff at. You put yourself in a fantastic position to be in the mid-season. But taking a look at this is a team that is a little bit on the smaller side, 6 people, but, if you've been watching Overwatch the past year or two, that's a pretty relative size. But the one thing that makes me excited, but also concerns me a little bit, is what this team tends to go towards, and that's more of a dive-style composition that involves the Ana quite a bit, which concerns me in a lot of ways. I think Ana could still be a good pick, but we've seen what Zen, what Lucio, what Bap and Kiri can all do in this meta. They're all definitively better in terms of what they can accomplish, so I want to see what this team is trying to pull out in regards to that, because, like I said, it concerns me, but it could work. Just, I don't know how that's going to look in the face of, Ushis, who seems to be very comfortable with their own style of composition.
I do want to jump in here a little bit just to talk a little bit more about the Ana, because I think that it is important to recognize that Ana isn't weak right now in a vacuum. She hasn't really been buffed or nerfed by the patch. It's just about what your opportunity cost is. As you mentioned, Kiriko, Zenyatta, Lucio, all finding a little bit more value. And the other big thing is that she loses out on that great pairing that she used to have with Brigitte, of course. You used to be able to self-nade yourself, those packs that inspire healing, and basically nothing would ever die there. And DPS passive nerfing that healing by 20%, and that means that Brigitte is, according to a lot of people, the worst hero in the game. And so now, with Brigitte being a lot weaker than she was previously, Ana is, by lack of having a properly good pair, just a lot worse as well. Of course, if you can hit those cooldowns, she's going to find that value. If you do have a good nano target, she's going to find that value. But will it be enough to overcome, not playing that Kiriko, not playing that Zenyatta?
I would argue it does, though, Sebastian. Like, let's be real about this. Yeah, you're losing your pairing in the sense that you maybe don't have as many good targets. But when you look at the whole 5 that they love to play, they love a dive comp. They understand. They have a Tracer. They have a Winston. Winston is your ideal target for something like the Nano to keep generating those ultimates and keep those rotating. So if you already have, you might not have the perfect backline pair, but if everybody else forms around you to be pretty well, and it's a comp you're used to playing, I'd argue that's almost a net positive in some ways.
This is what we've been looking for out of the desk. These deep dive analytical topics are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to get through and how they're going to be able to figure out the formula for their own success. And these are the kind of things that we love about having Friday Night Overwatch once more. Gentlemen, Plague Group gonna have a lot, gotta say this, on their plate here tonight to try and go up against Ushi's Daycare. But let's go ahead and actually now switch over and talk about Ushi's Daycare. So let's get a little bit of a idea of what's going on with this group, with this team, and with this roster in particular.
I mean, they're a German powerhouse team. There's not much else to say about that. When you look at the 2-0 with a bye, like, that just tells me that this team is well rehearsed and really has been a team together. Yeah, there's a couple of people who have played on previous teams, but from what we can kind of see, they look really well-rounded. They have somebody to cover almost every position, and those kinds of results, regardless of what they're looking to play. Yeah, they like to play Winston comps too. They like to play the dive. I mean, it tells me that this is a well-rounded team that's been almost medal tested. When you look at people who come from Nyx, Too Easy, and in Kringles, like, these are teams that we've seen, faintly around the space of CGL. So there's some tested talent here. And when you put that tested talent in with some fresh faces who might be able to challenge and upgrade your team, I think that's a recipe for success. And that's what gives you a 2-0 going into this.
I mean, Spectreon, going in. Oh, sorry, Hunter. You got something. I
went a little on the patient side. Hey, something I kind of brought up before we really got into things, and something I like to bring up a lot, is who these teams have faced in the past, because that does have something to do with, whether you're 2-0 or 0-2, that strength of schedule matters a little bit. We look at Ushi's, who went 3-1 against Cosmic, let's be real, statistically speaking, have been the worst team so far in the EU Masters tier, but they also dropped a map to them in the first place. On top of that, yes, they go and beat Munich, who in their own right has only lost to them, but in their own right, they've only beaten those bottom tier teams as well. So I think there is definitely a point to saying that they are tested in their own right, but you haven't seen them go up against Pumpkins. We're just going to see them go up against Platehouse. I think that if there's a time for us to really say they have that medal and have been tested, it's going to be in these next 2 weeks, because right now, I don't think I can fully justify that yet.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to bring up to you, Spectrion. I mean, Ushi's Daycare, they may be at that 2-0 and they may have all this flexibility, but that's where plate groups they've gone up against Goliath. They may have fallen, but at the very least, they still took on the number one as of this moment here in the standings.
I mean, yeah, and often playing against a much stronger team than yourself, it does kind of suck in the moment, but it is great for, getting that data, for finding out exactly where all of your weaknesses are getting exploited. So, yeah, they can definitely come back and learn from that loss. If they do have the mental, the coaching staff for it as well. Hopefully not too, obsessing to play against, obviously, the absolute strongest there. But Pumpkins, I think no one really begrudges a loss against them. Occasionally, you just go against somebody who's a little bit better. So they have had time to, regroup a little bit, reset their mental, and coming back into this day, I have to say, it is a heat test that I do think has begun to strengthen them a little bit more.
All right, well, we've talked about the teams themselves. We've talked a little bit about the roster, but now it's actually time to get into the lineups themselves. And of course, here in the amazing CGL for Friday Night Overwatch, well, do we have something special for you? Starting off with Plate Group. How freaking cool.
That ruled. That
Right?
ruled.
That was pretty good, yeah.
It is so freaking amazing. And so now we actually go into Plate Group itself, which also I love their logo immensely. Very good. God save Queen. We have Tree, Gangam, Bipolar Bear, Gods, and Coda. And I mean, just out of what we saw from that Hunter Tane, they're looking pretty good. They're looking pretty strong.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence, and a lot of that can come from knowing where your comforts are, and I think this is exactly where this group is sitting. They're playing the characters that they are very good at, and that comfortability can go a very long way between them. I'm especially looking forward to see what Bipolar Bear can do over on the Winston, who, some people may make the argument that Diva is better in some scenarios, but you can still do a heck of a lot with that Winston, especially with Coda on that Ana, so I'm expecting a lot of nano dives, and I'm expecting a lot of great dives from this team here today.
Yeah, remember, like we were talking about, if you're going to play this Ana, and we've seen that this is, a written comfort for them, you almost have to play the Winston. Diva's not going to get you the value. You're not building self-destructs here. You need to build those primals, and that's going to enable your tank to carry. So really watching for Bipolar Bear and Coda this backline, because they need to be in sync if they're going to make this a positional to get them the number 2 spot.
All right, we got Plate Group. Now it's time to look at Ushi's Daycare. small hot take, but I think that is my favorite so far. That is phenomenally good. So now we get into Ushi's Daycare, where we have Vibing, Palaz, MT, Piper, and Mori Rix, Spectrion. It's again another team that has gone through so much. They're in the top 4. Now we're looking at the roster in its totality. Tell me about it. Give me some feelings.
I mean, first and foremost, I gotta get this out of the way. These highlight videos have been fantastic, like genuinely, like Overwatch League tier in quality.
Yeah.
So first, hats off to the video editors, the players putting it together, because that's fantastic. But on to the actual team of Ushi's Daycare. I know we spent a lot of the time with Plate Group talking about whether their comp would be meta, whether it would work out on current patch. Ushi's Daycare do not have that same problem. They love playing the Junker Queen. We saw it even in that highlight video at Empty with a big rampage there. And Junker Queen right now is so strong. Either if you're playing the old style with the Kiriko Lucio backline, or the more newfangled composition, especially that we have been seeing in NA a little bit, with this kind of Zenyatta Lucio backline actually. So you have that less sustain, but you have that higher damage. Either way, it means that Ushi's Daycare is going to be on comfort picks that are also very strong right now. So overall, I have to say that they are going to have a much easier time, at least starting off on this patch. And if Empty can get work going, it can really get started early, then Ushi's Daycare, I think, have to be absolutely to be threats to be contended with in this entire tournament, and especially in this game today.
I mean, so going off of that line of thought, going off of that train of thought, Ushi's Daycare, the one to look at, the one that we're feeling.
I mean, yeah, they look. I mean, you again, incredible video highlighting all these great players. It's really hard to not look at this lineup and say that there are some key pieces that when you think about what this meta was kind of made up of, Tracer, Lucio, even Zenyatta, who, yeah, we were kind of debating this, is Zen still really good here? He did take a hit, but when you look at these pieces and this is their preferred pieces, is this enough to get them across the line? And that squad and say, yeah, they got the pieces to slot into this meta, but I'm not fully convinced.
Oh, so this has me excited, and I think it has Hunter excited as well.
It does, and there's a certain aspect though you have to remember, and that this is a team with 2 different tanks. So at the end of the day, this is a team that can run 2 entirely different styles, because no 2 tank players are the exact same. We are all built different in a lot of different ways. Most of us built in a very insane way, but still, it's a different style you can have between either going on that Winston or the Junker Queen. The style could be very different, and I could see that definitely catching a team like Playgroup off guard, who, maybe you start having success hitting them back on the Junker Queen, and they decide to go and beat you at your own game. We saw this 2 weeks ago, where a team literally decided, all right, we'll play what you're playing, and they went and ran it down their faces. It's entirely possible. We see that. I think that flexibility could do a lot for this team.
Well, we're gonna find out after we get through our predictions. My favorite segment of the week. I know, Hunter. I know, buddy. But we got to get through it, and we got to talk about it. But before we do, I want to say, if any teams are watching right now, we are always on the lookout for teams to be able to show off for Friday Night Overwatch on the EU and NA side of things. If you do get chosen, make sure you send in your highlight reels. Make sure you send in your highlight clips. That way we can make these awesome videos for you to use for yourselves as well. It's amazing. You saw the quality, and it's absolutely worth putting yourself out there for these Friday Night Overwatch segments. But now it is time to get into the predictions. This week is, we've learned our lesson. We're getting better at this. It feels like, at least some of us are. At least some of us are. I don't want to brag or anything, but we have across the board, actually, funnily enough, Ushi's Daycare, me 3-0, Spectron 3-1, Hunter Tane 3-2, all going up. But then Soav, you're the odd one out. Plate Group.
Look, I'll say it. I'm not trying to be a contrarian here. Look, last week I gave it to the group that I was assuming going to have more fun with it. But I do genuinely think that Plate Group here, if you hit Mount Everest, you try to climb it and you fail, that gives you so much more mental to really build up towards, to look at, K2, whatever your smaller mountains that you're going to climb are. I'm not a mountain climber. Don't ask me. I barely climb stairs. I
think K2 is more dangerous than
Everest.
I don't know.
I barely climb out of my chair half the time. The point is like, if you've seen the top, if you've seen the hardest thing you have to climb, it prepares you, kind of like we were talking about. So I really do think that they have an edge. I don't think it's going to be an easy 3, like an easy 3-0, but I do think that when you've played the toughest team, when you've kind of been tested against that hardened steel, it makes you stronger and it gives you that edge. And I have to just believe in them here.
Well, I mean, Hunter, you're kind of believing them in your own special way, but just not enough for them to take the final victory.
No, not quite. I kind of talked about the strengths of having those two tanks within Ushi's daycare, but you have to look at that comfortability of Plate Group, who, you know, we look at this map, and yes, there are a lot of these maps that seem to be very comfortable for the Queen, but I think with that dive composition, once you really start to get on a roll, you could start to run away with it. Just, I don't think it's quite gonna be enough in this situation. I think it should be close, and I know I've said that the last couple of weeks and hasn't quite, you know, came to fruition yet, but I'll double down and say once
Ooh.
again that I think it's going to. I think we will
Man's
go
out,
to that
man's out here
route,
trying to get
but-
some breadsticks.
I know.
It's like several
Look at
weeks
this.
ago.
I've been waiting for 3 long years. It'll happen eventually.
And Spectreon, certainly last but certainly not least, rather, sorry about that. You're 3-1, and based on the history that we've gotten out of Play Group, right? They've gone up against Pumpkins. They did take a map off of them at the very least, so it's not the end of the world, and this might be an accurate prediction coming from you.
I mean, for me, it's kind of based around the maps that we have, you know, in the tournament. I think we're starting here on Antarctic Peninsula. Those sight lines can be much closer, much more comfortable for that Junk Queen to play around. Blizzard World coming up next. I have to probably a shoe-in for the dive if Ushis do want to end up playing that. But after that, we have Suravasa, Esperanza. These are two of the best Junker Queen maps in the game. And so I think we've got Ushis taking map 1. It goes the other way on map 2, and then closing out in 3 on Esperanza. That's my pred. If it doesn't go any other way, I'm going to find a hat and eat it.
That is like a way. You are way too committing to every single map to map there, dude.
I like
wouldn't even
it.
Get that hard, and I'm choosing. I'm hardly the man out here. Come on, that's bold.
we got down to the minute detail. Let's go ahead and take a look at our casters' predictions real quick before we get into the game. We have Time to Salty and Twin Light. Just kidding, by the way. Play Group for Time to Light is going to be 3-2, and Twin Salty is Ushi's Daycare. So we have our caster predictions. We have our desk predictions, but now it's time to figure out which one of these two teams are going to be able to take the victory today. Throwing it over to our casters, Time to Light and Twin Salty. Gentlemen, it's all you.
Thank you very much, Desk. I have to say, this one is just about as much of a coin flip as it could be. Yeah, there's, 4 of 6 picking Ushi's Daycare, but hey, 66% of the time you can be wrong anyway. I'll take my 33% with Soab every day of the week. I'm Time to Light. That right there is Twin Salty. He's also wrong. But Jesse, you have to say, every day of the week, there's anything we could see, especially with some of the more recent patches we've seen today. Spec kind of brought it up. I'll let you nail the point home.
Yeah, I will say Spectreon literally took the words out of my mouth with how I think this series is going to go, with it being maps 1, 3, and 4 for Ushi's Plate Group, maybe stealing away Blizzard World because JQ isn't quite viable.
Yeah.
But I will say for Ushi's, Finn is in the lineup right now. He was listed as a sub. He is mainly a Winston player, so we'll see if we see a lot more of these dive looks from Ushi's. It's all we've been seeing over at OWCS Korea is a lot of more Doom dive comps, but I think the general idea will still be transferred here.
Well, we can take a look at our maps, figure out where we are headed. It was brought up earlier. You just brought it up as well. Antarctic Peninsula will kick things away. Blizzard World is our hybrid map of the day. Suravasa, our flashpoint. Esperanza on push. And map 5, should it be required, which I was one of 2 people who predicted it to be so, alongside Hunter Tane, shout out Hunter Tane, even though he chose the wrong team, is Route 66. Hot take, one of my favorite maps in the entire Overwatch 2 competitive pool.
You know what? I don't mind that take. You know, it's Route 66 will always be, you know, one of the better maps, even though, you know, for some players, especially tank players, it can be a little frustrating at times if you're getting sniped from top gas. But I do think Antarctic Peninsula, I want to see Plate Group try and fight really aggressively early on, knowing that, hey, maybe this isn't a map type that necessarily goes towards their strengths a ton. But if you're Ushi's, you want to win this straight away. You know that, hey, you have a little bit more versatility going into this map. You want to be able to show it here.
You know, seeing the Plate Group logo very large was the first time I realized it had the Queen on it. That's hilarious. That's a great logo. Plate Group wins purely off their logo, although Ushi's Daycare has a great little block set up there. Both teams are winning the logo battle in the CGL. I don't care about anything else in the game. Who cares what the score is at the end of the day? Except for, me, because I want to get my prediction right. That's about the only reason. We'll head into our first point of Antarctic Peninsula. Plate Group, they are... I'm not even talking about roles right now, because I'm usually wrong and they swap before they leave spawn doors.
Yeah, I'll say theoretically here, if Plate Group do decide to stay this, we've seen this a tiny bit also in Korea. I think it was Poker Face who showed this a tiny bit on King's Row. It can work to help with the aggression. The Hanzo maybe not as much, but it is a way to try and just play the long game and hope that you can catch someone from Ushi's on the rush in. They will go to the Tracer instead of the Sim, but this is the exact look we were thinking from Ushi's with this JQ rush.
This is not a single mirrored hero, though, and in the new meta, that's not uncommon to see anymore. It used to be shocking to see maybe a month, 2 possibly ago. But into 2024, it seems like Overwatch 2's had a lot of new features and new heroes into the prevalent part of this hero pool. Gangnam swapped off of that Symmetra. Tracer close range, you need to be very careful around vibing, and that Sojourn. But there's that jump in, the point unlocks, and Bipolar Bear takes a heck of a lot of damage. Here in the Antarctic Peninsula, maybe Bipolar Bear has that home field advantage, but they need an opening kill. Already, that Immortality field gone, so too is Coda. Your main heals dispatched of, that very will be the first fight gone as well. It's already first cap for Ushi's Daycare.
Bipolar Bear tries to hold up on that corner of the point, but it leaves their back line wide open for the rest of Ushi's Daycare to take care of it. And now, Plate Group, how do you want to adjust from here? You have 70% to your Hanzo ultimate. It could open up some space, but you wonder if this next fight doesn't go their way, do they already start thinking about making a swap?
I'd say swap after ults. That's my call. Yeah. Especially when you're this committed, you might as well stick it through. Hopefully win a fight. If it doesn't work for you, if some of these fights don't work for you, and you know you have to make a swap, might as well do so sooner rather than later. I love the Orb of Discord in the new meta, especially with that DPS pseudo effect. Coda finds the opening. Piper taken care of. 40% still on the cards for Ushi's Daycare, though. And a nice headshot there for It Is Tree. They need a kill. They almost find it. How in the world is Palos still alive? They'll disengage onto the point. They should die, and they will. This should be a cap for Plate Group. Not a heck of a lot they lost, other than, what, a couple cooldowns? That's a great fight for them to pick up.
It's a phenomenal fight. You hold on to the Dragon Strike here from Tree, and you even, especially that pick on the Piper early, just sets the tone because Ushi's can't run around rampant like they want to win this comp. They want to play fast, they want to catch someone off guard, but with Piper out of the mix, they couldn't do it.
So Rush is available, so too will the Rampage, but it is support ults across the board. We're about to have tank ults on both sides. Basically, it's a press Q combination on either side. There's the Amp Matrix right off the bat, just looking for space, and they'll find it to start. That JQ needs to be a little bit more cognizant of her position, and so too does Moririx. They'll fall right off the bat, losing that immediate Kiriko. You just have to disengage. You can't play for this fight off the bat.
No, you can't. And again, perfect fight execution for Plate Group. You see Moririx just peeking their head out, trying to heal Finn instead of just taking the TP, and they eventually get the punish, and now they still have this high ground position, and Finn, just like you saw, already have their health gone, trying to even get to the point.
Sound barrier early, Dragon Strike straight through it, but it is a W key for just about everybody. A Q press for half the lobby as well, but it is that Transcendence alongside the lift. It'll do damage, it'll find a kill. Piper low HP as well, they'll fall. Great ultimate spacing here for Plate Group. They'll win the fight, and they'll force out so much in the process. Rush, Dragon Blade, and Sound Barrier all in the same few seconds, and we've reached final fight territory.
Disaster fight for Ushi's there. The Transcendence was perfectly timed. It cancels out the effect of the beat because you can't get anything done with being aggressive with it, as well as the fact that the Blade got nothing. It allows Bipolar Bear to stay up as well.
Rampage finds 2. The only ult available for Plate Group is that Pulse Bomb, and it'll find absolutely nothing. Great axe from Finn, and it's just a disengage here for Plate Group. Ushi's Daycare do win the fight, and they save over their overclock, but it's really just going to be a single ult fight on both sides.
Yeah, it's going to be, hey, can Vibing get something early on with this overclock? They want to be aggressive. That's why Piper is trying to just basically run around with them here on the flank to make sure they can get in and out. Even though they almost catch Coda initially here with the knife.
Oh, Vibing's low HP. You need to hunt down that Sojourn if you're plate group. That overclock could be the fight deciding factor, but nobody will fall early. This is true final fight, but Maririx falls early again. Cannot be worst case scenario, except for if this overclock falls. It will send itself through, but nothing consequential, and there's a near perfect pulse bomb stick. Finn and Palos will fall in the same few seconds, and that should just about do it on this first point. Cap will go to plate group. Nobody can even touch, much less do anything about the round itself. This one, at least first round, will go to plate group.
Not the start that a majority of the desk saw.
Let's go!
I will give you it so off credit. It is very early here though, as plate group double the eliminations than Ushi's during that point, 34 to 17. A ridiculous difference, and that just shows the level of team play going on right now with plate group. They're playing this extremely well, and Maririx, they're going to be shaking their head. That's twice you said this round. They got caught very early, and that might have cost them the entire point.
Notably enough, it was by the same hero. Gods found the opening pick on Maririx twice. It may have been Coda the first time, but I'm going to say it was Gods because I'm pretty sure it was Gods. Regardless, 6 eliminations. You saw it on the stats earlier on. A few final blows. And there's the switch. It is just a full dive on both sides. But a Reaper Sombra versus a Tracer and a Genji. This is an odd difference on the DPS line.
Yeah, this is exactly what we thought for Ushi. This is what we thought meta would be today. In plate group, they're at least bringing a little variation.
Oh, but there's the hack on dividing. They're lucky to get out. Finn may not be as lucky, though. Here comes that Reaper, and it is hunting down for souls. This is a great start to yet another couple of fights. Gods will play the Moira. Spectrion was on a different broadcast last night with me. He said, and I quote, "I hate Moira." Can't blame him. She's kind of gross.
Dude, and I think plate group, they're actually playing this perfectly. A lot of the meta right now, we obviously see the Doomfist instead of the Winston, but that's why typically the Tracer Genji works, because the Reaper not as effective against the Doomfist, but here, they forced the swap already. Its tree was too much to handle for Finn.
Yeah, and Finn playing on that JQ up against this Winston combo with a Moira, that becomes way too problematic on a difference of dive/rush. I don't know if Finn's going to find as much payoff with his JQ as they may think, because we saw it in the previous round. It just did not do as much. Granted, that was against a Sigma. It was also up against a BAP and that... oh, just everything else. But Palos finds the opening. There goes by Polar Bear. Finn has the shout to get themselves in. They're very lucky to live through this. They may not do so at the end of the day. Great healing for Maririx. They'll live through the final part of this fight. But 50% picked up from plate group. They're more than happy with how the first half of the second point is gone.
No, they are so happy with how this has gone. They didn't have to use a single ultimate as well. They still have that sound barrier for this Genji blade that is coming in from Pollux. Not a bad start. Ushi's, though, I like the adaptation. It does have to be played very specifically, though, because you need to be able to catch by Polar Bear like you just did that last fight when they're being aggressive, because if not, plate group will be able to clean up.
So how does this Sombra work? They throw in the Cole very early, they hack out Finn, but a sound barrier and a very early cleanse will cost them a decent bit, and Maririx has to expose everything for their team. They don't have anything to keep themselves alive, and the rest of the squad will fall shortly thereafter. If your main support can't keep themselves alive, they certainly can't keep you up in the same fight, at least not shortly thereafter. Cap back for plate group.
I will say, Ushi's had a very good opportunity during that fight. Palos pops the blade. Sound barrier from Coda only hits the support line for plate group. But the only person that Palos actually sees and swings at is Gods, who was the only other person who got hit with the beat. A slight error there on trying to figure out who they were wanting to go after from Palos. Loses them the fight, and now one fight remaining. We got EMP going in.
It binds 3 players, but they won't fall off after it. Everybody holds W, and it works. It's called a dive composition for a reason. Call them swimmers with how quickly they were in the deep end.
That was an insane fight execution, and they still only had to use the EMP there. Did not even have to use the Death Blossom part of the combination. Ushi's trying to get back. You assume Piper at least should be able to get there, or somebody from Ushi should.
They should touch, and they will. Rampage will at least be the catalyst for it, but it only catches by Polar Bear and Coda. Coda's lucky to be alive right now, but there goes the Death Blossom, and there goes Palos in the process. Rush is used, so too is the Overclock from up above, but the Primal Rage to hunt down Viping, who is doing so no longer. They should be taken out, and they will be. The Reaper will take out Moririx as well. Plate Group, to everybody's dismay, win 2-0 on Antarctic Peninsula. Oh boy, do I love being right.
Hey, so far. But wow, what a performance there from Plate Group. And I will say the Sigma comp coming out was such a great call. We don't see it a lot right now. Very selectively, we've seen it as a response to this JQ comp on certain maps, and it worked brilliantly on that first round. And then once we got over to the dive, they bring out the variation with Tree on the Reaper and Gangam on the Somber to just try and make Finn's life as horrible as it could possibly be. But honestly, the small mistakes like that, you can't be peeking out against Window. It was the very small things for Ushis that I think lost them this map, and it might be the reality check they need for the rest of the series.
So it was a lot of early engagements being the catalyst there. I noticed a lot of opening kills being the difference maker, Moririx dying first on a couple occasions, and just seeing good ultimate usage to be the opening factor they needed. You talked about it, the sound barrier here. That's just so unfortunate. You catch the only person it catches other than obviously the Lucio. But this is a great EMP, and everybody was just already diving before the EMP landed. You have to have confidence in your players, and they do. There's not a lot you can do here if you are Ushi's Daycare to try and recover that point. And they don't. Here are the stats, Gangnam. They top everything. 22 eliminations and 4 final blows. But it is Tree topping the leaderboard in both final blows and DPS damage, apart from Palos, who didn't find nearly as many eliminations nor final blows, but still did over 7k damage. That is gross.
That is a ridiculous stat line. 20 more deaths for Ushis. That is something that going in, you know, we talked about it. This JQ comp, you need to be very precise. They weren't able to do it, as we have a little bit of a comparison here as well for Coda against Piper. This Lucio duel, and there's not eliminations. 10 more for Coda, has more healing, and half the deaths of Piper. They were getting looked at time and time again. Same thing with Moririx as well. This backline for Ushis needs to make sure they stay alive, because that is who Plate Group is looking at every single fight.
Coda is more than happy to get that off, but 5 more final blows, you said it. 3 less deaths. They both get the exact same amount of sound barriers off, 1 in each round. This is a shocking showing. But Coda's sound barrier in the second round is something I want to focus on. While it wasn't all that consequential, the fact that it only catches the Moira, completely counters out the Dragon Blade, and more importantly, doesn't catch the rest of the team. This is something I want to focus on maybe for later, because I'm going to presume they're going to stick on the Lucio for long stage in this series. Possibly catching that sound barrier a little less effective could cost them later on. It ended up being the best possible case because you catch one of the 2 people that the Dragon Blade could have found, but later down the line could be a little bit more impactful and negatively, not so much positive.
Yeah, like you said, I think Plate Group will be very happy here just to be like, hey, we got away with that one. It didn't hit all the people we were hoping, but hey, it worked that time around. And, you know, Plate Group, you look at the standings here, and, you know, they were pretty admittedly like, hey, their game against Pumpkins, they did not play as well as they wanted to, right? Like, that was something they said. They did not play to their standards. They've played Pumpkins and Scrims since then. They've been pretty close. I think this is the Plate Group that they've been seeing in those Scrims. We just have to see if we can see that throughout the entirety of a series, especially going to Blizzard World, where this JQ is not going to work for Ushis very well. This was the map that, you know, Spectrat and I both kind of thought would maybe be Plate Groups to win, and now instead of it maybe being to even up the series, it might be to put them on series point.
Yeah, Plate Group could very well go up 2-0 with this. I do think both you and Spec were correct in your, we'll say, assumptions for the time being about maps 3 and 4. So, once/if we get to either of those 2, things could become problematic for Plate Group. However, they won't just yet. Blizzard World is probably the best possible map for Plate Group, and there are no swaps on either side of each team. So, that means that we're seeing something similar in terms of compositions, but I feel like Bipolar Bear has so many other opportunities to play different tanks compared to Finn, because Finn was really just locked in on either the JQ or the Winston. Really nothing else, and that's what I'm concerned about going on to a much more fluid type of Blizzard world, where Sigma is very viable, JQ, not so much.
Not so much. I think the Sigma, honestly, was something that, again, we didn't think about a whole lot, but it could definitely work here for Playgroup if they decide to run that. But at least from the slight glimpses we saw when everyone was loading into the lobby on our end, we may be seeing a lot of the same looks with Ushis on the JQ, Playgroup on the Winston dive, but we'll see when they actually spawn in. I want to see if Vibing goes to the Widow, because Ushi's talked about a lot like, hey, we know that Vibing is a phenomenal Widow. If we can get them on that hero at some point during this series, we feel even better about our chances. This may be the map to do it later on. This first phase can be a little difficult on offense. On defense, it can be a little easier. And second phase as well, you see Widows a lot of the time. And as I'm saying it, Itch Tree will actually pull it out on defense themselves for Playgroup. So that is maybe where Ushis could start making up some ground if Vibing does elect to go that route later on.
This is a very weird position for Ushi's daycare to be in. They choose the attack, and to start off Blizzard World, there's the real two schools of thought, or really any hybrid or escort map. It is, you want to start attack to figure out where you need to defend from, or you want to start defense to figure out where you want to attack to. I choose the defense most of the time, but it's up to a lot of teams' preference. Widowmaker being picked here, it is about as standard as our, we'll say, background information would provide. Most played hero for It Is Tree, so, or at least favorite hero for It Is Tree, most played would be Tracer. But this first fight could mean everything, especially in such a dry fight. Winston versus Winston, we're not seeing the Sigma that I thought we would, and Bipolar Bear is being hunted down on the high ground. They have very little help. They'll have to disengage, probably get a Bionade from Gods, who is swapped onto the Ana as well. This is a very interesting first fight, we'll say. Backline attempt unsuccessful, but there's Palos. They'll find Gangam, and a follow-up is just a snowball afterwards. This is a clean first fight for Ushi's daycare, especially what they needed to open up Blizzard World.
Yeah, like I said, this is exactly the start they want, and Palos on this Echo could be a real issue for PlateUp, as they will be able to finish off Bipolar Bear quite often with that focusing beam, be able to finish down those targets, and now Itch Tree will have the response. They will go over to the Ash to try and deal with them more directly in the air. But Coda on this Brig is interesting, because Brig's kind of fallen out of meta due to the balance changes. I don't think she's bad still with Ana, but I wonder if that's something that as well is hurting Playgroup here.
So I like the Brig pick only because the Winston's being brought by Ushi's daycare. If you run anything other than a Winston or an Echo, I don't think the Brig's gonna find as much. That whip shot's just so dangerous when a dive comes through. You can really just prevent a lot more damage. But Ushi's daycare making it past this arch choke already, with still 4 minutes and 50 seconds on the time bank. That first fight, I said it was so important because it does not allow Playgroup to build anything. You can see Bipolar Bear already near Primal will have it the next few seconds. If that first fight went any differently, they'd have it before the first fight or first point was captured.
Yeah, and now they just have to keep backing up. Ushi's will just keep moving forward, and now actually the dupe will come in from Palos.
The Winston, and Primal immediately built up, but so too is Bipolar Bears as they want to get in. But with 1,000 HP, what do you do with all this space that's now in front of you? Step away, stick onto Bipolar Bear. They will not be particularly happy about that, name not included. And Ushi's daycare, a statement made in this first one, but there's that whip shot. There goes the Echo.
Yeah, you wonder if there will be a slight recontest here from Playgroup late on just to make sure, but it still looks like Ushi's will be trying to play this. Pulse Bomb will hit Piper and take them out, and I think that will mark the end for that fight. They're just gonna elect to get out, but honestly, it's just under 4 minutes left. You are at the very end of second phase. I would not be complaining if you're Ushi's.
So you have Trees swap onto the Ash from earlier. That'll pick up a Bob in a few seconds, but you've already used Primal. You just used Pulse Bomb to basically win a fight on its own, and you've used Nano. You basically just have Rally Bob to, we'll say, prevent the combo of Primal and Sound Barrier, things are becoming more and more problematic than they can deal with. Great jump from Bipolar Bear to get out and get healed. But this is a fight that I'm going to say probably could decide the game with still 3 minutes left and limited ultimates on both sides.
Yeah, let's go in right away. Primal popped. Honestly, at this point for Play Group, you just gotta live.
Oh no, and the sleep missed as well. Bob is thrown through before Tree takes any negligible damage. But Bipolar Bear jumping in the backline makes things much more focusable for Ushi's Daycare. They have a concerted target, but Vibing's low HP. The Sound Barrier fairly inconsequential, and Piper stuck in the backline. They'll be stunned, they'll be taken care of. Great usage of that rally, and even better, Bionade will catch 3 players, 2 of their own, and obviously the purple onto Finn. That's a 1 fight for Plate Group, and an important one.
Honestly, that's all they had to do is delay, delay, delay. The Bob goes out, draws some attention, and draws out the fight. And then by the time that is done, Coda can pop the rally, keep everybody up, and Ushi's Daycare has to go back to square one. They do have this Kitsune Rush to play off of. Both DPS ultimates soon to follow as well. But same thing, Nano could be going on to Bipolar Pair this fight for Plate Group.
I wouldn't hate it, but I also wouldn't hate putting it onto Gangam. If they just can get to the backline. There's that jump again. Finn into the backline alongside the rush, but you lose Vibing too early. That makes things much more difficult. Nano on to Coda. Not something I had on my bingo card, but still seemingly effective at the end of the day. Finn still on this overclocked rush, or a very sped up rush, makes Coda's life so much more difficult. They'll jump into the backline, take them out. That should be the fight, minus the Primal Rage here for Bipolar Bear. With that Nano gone for gods, they have no extra flexibility to keep Bipolar Bear into this fight. They'll be focused down, they'll be duplicated by Palos, and they should be quickly dispatched of. That should and will be the cap onto second point. As soon as, wait, Gangam's taken care of. He
Gangam
finds one. Primal in the back line? There it is. That should do it. Maybe.
Well, they're going to try and draw this out, but
Okay.
I do think you draw out the Primal from Finn. That's a win if you're Plate Group.
Yeah.
Not an ultimate you thought they would have to use during that fight as Gangam just an absolute nuisance in the backline, and now Coda will swap back after the stall. Not a horrible play here, though, and Ushi still have 2.5 minutes, and they will go to the Genji now as that flex DPS. Echo a little bit harder to play here on third phase with it being inside. And also, Tree now put in a really tough position.
Racer Duel just barely getting that recall available, but Vibing lucky to be alive. They find yet another health pack, and they're coming back for more. That Genji trying to hunt down Gangam unsuccessful. A very odd first fight, and they use Bob extremely early. I really hope that was a fat finger because nobody's even in that vicinity. It just pushes them off the point, and that's it.
It's just isolating people in this side room. Bipolar Bear's trying to get him down, and they will snipe Palos at the very end of it.
I do love my Winston Tesla cannon snipes. I love when they live much better. They will disengage and stay alive. That is dangerous. But hey, 1 kill really the difference maker there as Piper falls as well.
Yeah, even though the Bob doesn't really get many kills, it just pushes Ushi's back into that side room. And now we see another swap. They will go back over to this JQ Rush. They still have both support ultimates to work with this fight, but Plate Group again, this Pulse Bomb, if they can find it and draw out that cleanse early, could be big.
Or even a Sound Barrier. You just want to force out some support ultimate. There's a Sound Barrier. Somehow it does completely negate that Pulse Bomb in the backline, but it's forced out early, and Morik's very lucky to be alive. They force out Rush as well. This is not a fight that can win Ushi's Daycare this third point, but it is something that can move them much further forward. Bipolar Bear gone, but so too is Moririx. That makes things much more difficult for the backline of Ushi's Daycare, but they'll resurrect themselves, and yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Even though Moririx can't actually see the value from that Kitsune Rush because they die soon after, that is what brings that fight around for Ushi's Daycare. Having that extra speed, and it will be now them just pushing the back, like, gods, it's gone.
They've touched spawn doors as well. They should cap here, barring Divine Intervention. Dragon Blade used. Say goodbye to Bipolar Bear. No matter how high you can jump, Palos can jump much higher. He's been, hitting the gym for legs every day of the week for multiple weeks, it seems, on the Genji. They will indeed find every finishing blow they need, and they will finish with time as soon as they take out His Tree. 22 seconds on the clock. Less than a minute, so notable regardless, but time on the clock anyway. Ushi's Daycare can be happy, but not particularly content with that first round.
Yeah, honestly, if you're Ushi's, you understand that, hey, we had a much better start than we had a finish, but they did show that adaptation that we knew they had going into this. Play group, we know we're going to see a lot of this dive, and we're going to see the Sigma comp now. That's about all we're going to see from them, I believe, tonight. Ushi's, we know we can see a few more looks, including that JQ rush. And once they got to that third phase, they felt more comfortable pulling it out. And it actually did work as planned, finally, against this Winston dive. But there is obviously a few asterisks. The play group, you can tell, they're gaining confidence throughout this map and this series. You wonder if that will continue here. And their attack now is they will basically keep it the same, more than likely.
Yeah.
Unless we maybe see something else on the DPS line.
So the lobby leader in damage thus far is by Polar Bear, and the sustainability of that defensive tank through the first round was probably the difference maker between Ushi's Daycare capping with 1 minute and 45 seconds or even 2 minutes and just capping with 22 seconds. The third point was much quicker than it probably would have been otherwise, so keep that in mind. That third point was really the difference for Ushi's Daycare, whereas second point was the difference for Plate Group. Things could very much change into the second round, though.
Things could very well change very quickly, as the Diva will be the case, like you said, on defense. They have the Ashe already going, so not the Widow that we thought we would maybe see from Vibing, but a very close secondary option. I think definitely just an answer to the fact that then Echo is on the board.
The Ashe out for Vibing. We saw this from It Is Tree in the previous round. This is the first time we're seeing them on the newer hero for them. Coach Gun out, they'll disengage. Piper not so lucky though. They've been the first death in a couple fights thus far, and they actually get to sleep onto Finn, so that Diva much more susceptible to the backline. Gangnam loses the Echo battle, but it seems like Ushi's Daycare is losing every other duel that they can. D-Mech of the Diva, somehow Bipolar Bear is still alive. They won't be for much longer, as the snipe down is there for Moririx. This fight I thought was Plate Group's to win. It's now their loss, and they don't get any percentage.
And they're going to get staggered out, too. Paolo's going in for the kill on Gods. Coda is stuck alone on the high ground, but they should be able to get out. And like I said, it looked like Plate Group actually could have been able to win that fight, but not able to at the end. Great job there from Moririx and Palos. That joint target prioritization. Finn is not in mech yet, which might be something that Plate Group try and play on fairly quickly here.
Yeah, but, I mean, 3 damage. Yeah, they find, I think, a single headshot. They'll get back into mech, but just barely. They were fairly low HP while entering the mech, but they'll get out one alive. Great ante lands onto the Winston. They somehow don't get slept on the hunt down. They will be put out of that duplication. The Ana needs to be very careful, but Palos finally loses the fight. Bipolar Bear being sniped down by Vibing, but not to lethal margins. That's the more important aspect. Here comes the dupe the other way. Gangnam needs to find the Bob if they want to have anything to do with this first point. Damage has been done, so too is a kill, and they're trying to hunt down Piper. Their HP not very marginal in this fight, and they won't even need the Bob to cap first. Great second opportunity for Plate Group.
Bipolar Bear plays that a little bit more smartly on the Winston, just finding those targets that are already low, finishing them off, and it'll be a decent time bank here for Plate Group. Not as nice as Ushi's had during their attack during second phase, but only a 30-second difference going into this portion of the map. And already Ushi's Daycare, they're suffering again. Gangnam being aggressive and showing Palos how to play Echo a little bit after Palos was running rampant on the Echo themselves.
So notably, it was Ushi's Daycare to get through the first choke with 4 minutes and 50 seconds. They were at about this point a minute ago, if you're comparing the two time banks. But their second point towards the later stages was much more labored. They capped with about a minute left, maybe 50 seconds on that time bank to second point, and they capped with 20 seconds to close out the map itself. Primal available will not be used, but the Nano forces out the sound barrier. You're more than happy with that, and you're trying to hunt down this Kiriko. Moririx, lucky to be alive, they will get hunted down with the Primal, and they'll actually escape with their life, but only the first time around. Gangnam finds the final blow they're looking for. Stick onto Finn, though. They won't even find a final blow at all. This is a great second point here for Plate Group, and they're forcing Ushi's Daycare to fully re-engage.
Yeah, Ushi just have to make sure they can get a contest at the end of this second phase, and it should have to be through Vibing, but everybody is pushing through. Blunderbuss pushes back Piper. They're gone, and this is going from bad to worse for Daycare.
Are they going to cap? Yes, they will.
Yes.
4 minutes and 30 seconds. Twice the time bank that Ushi's Daycare had to start third point. fully available for plate group. Yeah, the first point a little bit more labored, but second point, I don't think they made a single mistake except for possibly overextending on a single player.
Yeah, and this is starting to get a little scary if you're Ushis. You still have the elimination advantage from the first half of this map, but all of a sudden this game is feeling a lot less in your control, as Vibing will be caught out in the back as well. They know they are just chilling back there, so they may just take the 5v4 up front and just forget about the Tracer entirely.
So one thing's a guarantee, regardless of what happens at the end of this point, unless it's plate group not capping, Ushi's Daycare will have an opportunity into overtime. Bipolar Bear just throws himself between 9 separate players, even though there's only 5 rostered in the opposing team for the second game, and they'll be quickly taken care of. There's no way you're living through that. I'm sorry. I don't care how good of a Winston you are, you're not living. Vibing will be lucky to do so, just barely with a health pack regenerate, and they get health from their backside. Kiriko, re-engagement on the cards, though.
I respect him trying it, but it did not work very well that time around, and it'll be now. This is where Ushi's maybe had a little bit of an issue during their attack. I wonder if plate group will as well.
There's that dupe on towards the JQ, but it's completely unsuccessful. The opposing dupe onto the Winston. This one much more dangerous because you can quickly build up a primal if you find anything with it, not if you get stuck with a pulse bomb. Bipolar Bear dies as well, though. Both Winstons, ironic, die at nearly the same time. But there's still so much time in this time bank, as the point is extremely close to final point, or final touch, and Finn gets slept, but yeah, they'll be perfectly fine.
They got to make sure the rest of the team get out. What a shot, though, on the tree. And plate group, they're just going to play slow. They're going to see if they can get a pick, but not going to go in too quickly, as Vibing now will go back over to the Ash. They're not going to try and be that flank anymore, because they've honestly been getting shut down a lot by Tree and Coda. They do have the sound barrier to work off of. More than likely just going to be if they get low during this attack, or when the primal is popped by Bipolar Bear. Already you can see Gangam low already, can't push in with the Ash.
The Bionade into the Nanoed Winston. They'll all jump into the back line. The Primal popped as well. So much space created. Keep an eye on that payload, top of your screen. It's starting to encroach on the final opportunity, and nobody can touch. 2 minutes and 40 seconds now regenerated to the time bank because of the extra 40 seconds built up for Ushi's Daycare. Great fight planning for plate group. I think they've maybe found one elimination, yet picked up 35 meters off the back of it.
You know, this all of a sudden is turning into a series we did not think was going to be happening earlier today. Well, I would say majority of us talent did not. Man, if this does end up being a 3-0 for plate group, wow, I need to get back to work on my preds, because this is honestly just an incredible showing so far from plate group. This is the performance that they've been wanting now for a long time after that loss to Pump Kings. But Ushi's is not done yet. I do think this JQ comp can work in the second half of this map, but now, especially starting back over in overtime, it is going to be very rough on attack for it to work because of it just being a giant tunnel plate group. If they find somebody who is slightly taking a different rotation, they're going to jump on him right away, especially with the Sombra and Reaper in play this time around.
They are basically going with the entirety of their second point comp back on Antarctic Peninsula. I'm going to say it. I don't hate it. It's a little surprising, sure, but I don't hate it. The Reaper is going to be my main problem point for this. That and a combination of the Moira, because you just don't have that same variability on the defensive side. Yes, you have more flexibility. Yes, you have more movement. But with that Lucio, you have more movement as a team. It seems like they're giving a little bit more space. Sombra went out to hunt, and it's trying to catch him off guard. There's the hack, the jump through as well, but nothing consequential, at least not to start. They want to go hunting down the Echo, and it seems like they will. Cleanse is there, but the health bar not so much. Palos dead early, and it just has to be a complete disengage because Ushi's Daycare, one fight, they're already in final fight territory.
Both supports are gone for plate group, so they may not win this fight now, but if they come back quickly, they could have a chance to push back in. I think Bipolar Bear has now realized that they're at half health. Will have to back up, but what an execution there. Just hiding in the corner, finding somebody. But now if you're Ushi's, yeah, you got 10 seconds, just regroup. The supports for plate group will be back in time, though, for this fight.
So barring this being a full minute-long final fight, this will be a nearly full dry fight. Great usage of the hack and the virus. Finn is gone. This is a disastrous start to an overtime that otherwise needed to be perfect for Ushi's daycare. But you lose your Winston, who can get back into this one quickly. That's only if you can delay long enough. Say goodbye to your Lucio. Kiriko soon to follow. It's down to just your Tracer, who is not invulnerable by any means. Plate group, it is only drawable for Ushi's daycare. Plate group, nearly flawless on their defensive side, bar losing their supports to start.
And even though they lost their supports to start, they still have the discipline to back up. Realize, like, hey, we could just play around point, play around the corner. We don't need to be too aggressive here. After being this aggressive on the beginning of your defense. And they, excellent discipline from them. And Ushi's, you got to be thinking, if you're in those comms right now, what the heck are you saying? Because this map has turned on its head. You went from having an excellent start to the map on your attack, the defense not going quite well, and now on your second try on the attack, Plate Group anticipate that you may try and go back to that Winston dive. That's exactly what they do after that initial round, and they just get punished with the Reaper, with the Sombra. You saw Finn try and go in. They couldn't do anything. Hacked, Reaper shotguns in your face, gone. And Plate Group all of a sudden might be on serious point here as long as they can get one tick in 2.5 minutes on this point.
The problem is, it did take Plate Group 2 full minutes to cap first point. After that, I don't think they lost a single fight for the remainder of the game, or at least that round. But it does become problematic when you come in, or when you bring into account the fact that Ushi's daycare is bringing a very similar composition there. Ashe I like, Echo I like, the D.Va could be the difference maker though.
This D.Va could work. I do think it can definitely work. More even if it is the anti-dive or the counter-dive coming in from Ushi's. Because they've realized, hey, when they get aggressive, it's not working maybe as much as they want. Because Plate Group are honestly just diving their backline immediately. So instead, play a little bit safer. Wait for their dive to come in and try and punish that if they're just a little bit disorganized.
So they don't overdive though. They dive just to create more space, and then they will set up for what would be their final dive should it be successful. Success for vibing though, great couple of shots. The dive for Bipolar Bear, they have very little help, unfortunately, in the backline. They'll have to completely disengage. They'll actually be hunted down by Finn. Nothing there, and just a slowdown for Plate Group.
Yeah, that's exactly what Ushi should be doing. Just kind of wait for Plate Group to make a mistake. They saw, hey, Tree made a big mistake trying to go on that flank, punish, and now you play back. Make sure that, hey, your Lucio stays alive, your Kiri stays alive, and you are not making the critical mistake in this map.
The one difference is, because of the amount of time for Plate Group, they will have time to build up ultimates before this overtime round ends. So, it's just poking and prodding, even trying to find an opening, and that's exactly what Tree does. Palos dead, and there's the jump shortly thereafter, but Polar Bear just completely evaporated on that backline. And again, it's Plate Group having to completely disengage, and Palos, a very speedy Echo, will be able to come back much quicker than Bipolar Bear.
And its Tree gets caught out as well. That is not a stagger you can afford if you're Plate Group. And they're, hey, I will say, they're playing this counter dive extremely well. Bipolar Bear can't do anything in that back line. Their problem is they got to challenge that high ground at some point. Vibing tried to, but the rest of the Plate Group is there. And now the Nano almost online for Gods to send Bipolar Bear in.
Viper still has a sound barrier, though. That could be the difference maker. 45 seconds, still 2 fights could be on the cards, but we're really reaching fight plus a stagger territory to close out Blizzard World. This will be the final round. This will be one of the final fights. Whether it's successful or not for Plate Group, that's the difference maker. Sound barrier to counter out the Nano right away, but Vibing dies before it can get off. There goes an attempted bomb. If it's helpful, yes, but the duplication onto the D.Va is successful onto Maririk. Say goodbye, Toriur Kiriko. Say goodbye to Blizzard World. The opposing mech explosion will de-mech Finn. And yeah, you have your own replication of Palos, but the Ana, or at least the duplicated one, will fall. So too will Palos on the Echo themselves. And the Pulse Bomb, yeah, it's not as successful, but it's not going to matter. The Tracer will be taken care of, and Plate Group will go up 2-0 in a best-of-5 series.
I will say probably a little bit harder than they thought it would be on that final attack. Ushi started to make those adaptations that we've been begging for them to make during this map. It was just a little bit too little, too late. Plate Group had the set play, did exactly what they knew exactly what they needed to do on that fight, and from there took it home. 2-0 Plate Group. The number 4 team battling the number 3, and honestly, could get quite interesting in the standings if this does end up being a 3-0 for Plate Group in the middle of the pack.
Dead center position just completely shaken up already, regardless of whether this is a win for them. They could be reverse swept and still be, I'm going to say, happy with their first 2 map showings. But this game as a whole, you could see Ushi's Daycare make the proper adjustments on their defensive side in the final round of OT. But the issue really came when they did not have the sustainability for the rest of their team. As soon as you use those cooldowns, they don't regenerate as quickly, you didn't build up the Kitsune rush as quickly as you needed to, and the round ended shortly thereafter. Plate Group, their defense was amazing. Their offense, however, it needed a little bit of work to lock in the game, and yeah, they did, but it's still something to be concerned about as we move on to Surabasa.
Yeah, I think the big thing as well for Ushi's, they were, 5% off to getting Bob. They were 3% off to getting that final duplication on their defense. They just needed maybe a few more seconds, and we could be very well talking about a still 1-0 game instead of it being a 2-0. But, those are the margins sometimes that you just can't get past. And, we see the kill cam here. Finn still had 31 kills for Ushi's. Did a great job, but it just wasn't enough that time around. Honestly, it was just Plate Group turning it around. They had 8,000 more hero damage, even though they had less healing. It was just being that more clinical for Plate Group got them the map win.
Healing's overrated. Damage is where it's at.
Okay.
What's a support line? What's a support line?
The Soldier 1 trick.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm totally not a Soldier 76 1 trick.
Totally.
No, it is a great first couple of maps though. And that's really what we needed to see from Plate Group. Make a statement because yeah, you're the underdogs coming into things. 4 of the 6 people between our 2 desks agreed that you should go down in 4 or 3 maps, barring one who said 3-2. Shout out Hunter Tane on that one. But I have to say, this one seems like it'll be lucky to get to 4. We'll see if it does when Surabasa comes up right after this break.
Whoa, okay. Someone did not expect to be caught out this badly. What happened here, Adam? What's wrong? You just take a little peeky too far? Oh, yeah, Invictus clocked you. Yeah, the Avengers have a raid, and you ain't living this one. Yeah, just 2 shots from a bat, 1 headshot. Honestly, just good luck on here from Robbie. Oh, J-Wiz went so low. Wait, J-Wiz, gotta get out. No, never mind. J-Wiz is unaware, unfortunately. It's difficult to identify. I could see how you may have stayed in this one. It's just it's an awareness issue, small awareness issue. Phantom has lost a little bit of health over the course. Bro got absolutely massacred. Just managing to bisect Smolvin. Oh no, Adam died. Where did Adam die? What happened? What happened, Adam? Ah, hello. I see a distant silhouette. Oh no, don't tell me they're Invictus again. Oh, they're coming for the pickup. You try to intercept the pickup. Oh no. Adam, the stick? Oh. Wait, do you just eat shit on the Lucia projectiles? No, the Cheerios were too strong. Oh my goodness, elusive projectiles do so much damage with the new hitboxes, don't they? Hard engage. This should get maybe 3. Yeah, I imagine this gets 3. A slight assist here coming through from Crimson to make sure that the bat can't be hit by the rampage. Not ideal, I'm gonna say. Remember, kids, when you're trying to set up the... I mean, is this just supposed to be a backboard for Leaky? Is it gonna slide off? In the back, Adam has been taken out. Both the DPS fall at once, which is not ideal. What happens to you, Adam? Do you just find someone with a fully charged rail and eat shit? Yes. The answer is yes. Oh, the boop, the boop. How far does it go? Oh, you lucky bugger. You lucky bugger.
I'm not crazy, Malin. I've just been in a very bad mood for 40 years. 40 years.
Carpe diem. Carpe diem.
Two maps down, and it's the underdogs to take both of them. Both Antarctic Peninsula and Blizzard World go to Plate Group. I'm Time to Light. That right there is Twin Salty for Friday night or Friday mid-afternoon Overwatch if you're on the North American side of either continent. And I gotta say here, Jesse, it just seems like Plate Group are on another planet with how good they've been out the gate.
They've been dishing out answers for everything Ushi's has been trying to run. Like, honestly, like, the Sigma comp we saw in Antarctic was something we did not think we were going to see today. And the slight variation to the Winston dive with the Reaper Sombra works excellently. Every single time Ushi's tries to run the same dive with Winston, it gets punished. Now, as we go to Saravasa, we're going to potentially see more JQ. This is the map they should win. Like, they should be winning this on JQ. Even the pros have been playing JQ on this map with a little bit of Doom. This should be where, if you're an Ushi's fan, this is where they could start turning it around.
This is also the point where they have to trigger the reverse sweep or they're going to be swept. I don't feel like I have to preach what is the obvious, but this is a situation where it is win or lose the series.
Yeah.
You have to walk away with Saravasa, and I'm going to say it, I think they have to do so cleanly. Esperanza is still very much a coin flip. Yeah, the Junker Queen is better overall, but the Ramatra, I feel like, could still come through. We talked about this before we went live specifically, but as the analyst test was on, we don't think Ramatra will be played that much, if at all, today. If he will be played, it will most likely be on either Esperanza or maybe a single point of Saravasa, but nothing consequential there. This has to be, to state the very least, Saravasa going probably 3-0 or 3-1 to Ushi's Daycare, or I don't think they have any level of sustainability in this series.
Yeah, this needs to be decisive, I think. Or even if it is a 3-2, it has to be them finishing very strong on the map. It can't be they're limping over the finish line here on this map. They have to finish strong to make sure, hey, going into Esperanza, if that is where we are, if we do end up going to that map 4, it will be, hey, we're feeling great about ourselves. This is what we need to be doing. So I think we do have a slight lobby issue. That's why you're coming back to us for a second here. But this is going to be very impactful, not just for this game, but for the season as a whole. Again, top 4 make it to the bracket. These are currently teams 3 and 4. If Ushi's does not win here, they fall down a little bit. Plate moves up, and Plate all of a sudden could be in a driving seat to make sure they secure themselves a top 4 spot.
You're looking at a nearly guaranteed top 3 spot. Not guaranteed, but certainly looking much better for it. I'm not going to bring up the Doomfist just yet, just because we're still in spawn doors. But you said Doom earlier would not be unreasonable. Here it is, maybe?
Yeah, we might finally be seeing the comp that's been running rampant in
Yeah.
WCS Korea, as I'm feeling Tree will swap to Tracer. Yep, there it is. So this is the comp we've seen a lot in Korea. It is very aggressive. Honestly, if you're Ushi's, vibing needs to be fearing for their life. It is going to be very tough to try and get away from this constant damage and the constant dive going in. Finn as well needs to try and help out, being aggressive themselves.
I feel like the Doomfist could play similar to how the Junker Queen just drags you into the fight. If you land the jagged blade you're looking for, just jump behind him, absolute power punch into the backline, or from their backline into yours, and they're just completely focus fired down. Bipolar Bear jumps in between 3 or 4 people, though, has to be much more cognizant. So Cap will go to Ushi's Daycare first, as will the opening elimination, but watch out for the Doomfist. You said vibing needs to be careful, and they have been. Extremely successful first fight, and a couple staggers on what is a much quicker cap of this first capture point of Flashpoint Cervas.
Yeah, I admit, that was pretty well played from Ushi. As soon as Bipolar Bear tries to go in, everybody is looking at them. It is not taking a second or two. It is immediate. When they use the Seismic Slam to go in or the punch, everyone's looking at them. And almost every time, Bipolar Bear, instead of trying to be even more aggressive with that second ability, they're having to Seismic Slam out. They're having to punch out. So they can't finish up those kills. And that is something that Ushi's needs to continue on here this match.
So, movement abilities being what they are, every single one of the 10 heroes currently being played has a movement ability of some kind. Speed being efficable and really needed in this type of gameplay. Palos just jumps into the backline. It is Tree again, the opening death, by no means making things easy for the backline of Ushi's Daycare. 94%. This is the final fight of first point, and it's a successful one. Ushi's Daycare will go up 1-0 on Surabasa, and again, they'll find a couple stagger kills. Oh, somehow Koda's not dead. Never mind.
You wonder if Playgroup maybe either swaps back to the Winston dive here soon, or even if they want to try going back to that Sigma counter comp. It may honestly have to be that, because Bipolar Bear is not doing anything so far on this Doomfist. They're really struggling. They've only done 1,000 damage compared to the 2,500 they've actually received so far.
Yeah, this is starting to become more problematic than they can solve. Rush used on both sides, so too is a sound barrier for Plate Group, and Coda doesn't even have the opportunity to use their own. Dragon Blade will be successful to hunt down that strong support, and this is a dangerous opening fight to yet another difficult position. Gangnam just barely builds up. Oh no. And Tree gets hunted down by the Pulse Bomb. Gangnam builds up the Rush, or the Rampage, and Tree gets caught by their opposing Pulse Bot. This is just a done fight, and it's another one that's taking way too long.
This is carnage, and it just feels like Plate Group, they were just trying to chuck things in there to see if something would stick, and something will stick from Coda, but they're just going to join their doppelganger in the drink below, and they will go back to this Winston comp. Sadly for Tree, the Pulse Bomb didn't end up sticking to someone else. It just ended up taking themselves out in the equation, but at least somewhat of a bright light there. But Ushi's, they're running this JQ comp extremely well, but now can you make those adaptations to this comp that ruined you early?
Overclock used, so too is the Sombra being dedicated, and there's a sound barrier. It is press Q on both sides, but thus far seems more successful for Plate Group. They don't have as much to sustain around. The Rampage hits thin air. He caught nothing but hydrogen and oxygen, and that's not what you're aiming for when you press Q on the JQ. Luckily for them, they have so much more follow-up compared to Plate Group. It does seem like the cap goes the way of Plate Group for a few seconds, but nothing consequential afterwards. Ushi's Daycare, I think they're going to take Palace as well.
Yeah, they should be able to take the second round. Yeah, it will be 2-0 Ushi's Daycare going into the third Flashpoint. You said, hey, they need to win big on this map. So far, they're looking like they may actually be able to do that here on this map, as now you'll see the Flashpoint up next, and it is in the favor of Ushi's. They will have a very clear distinction of setting up first, and plate group, they'll have the coalescence to engage on, but that is it compared to the 3 ults Ushi's will have, hoping to at least save one for that next fight.
This is plate group wanting to take a dry fight. Honestly, you have Cole, but it's probably not going to do all that much. You want to try and force out Sound Barrier or Rush early if you can. If not, just make sure they dedicate Dragon Blade without you having to force anything. You can even give over the cap. You are in a situation where you have to force out this reverse sweep of Surabasa specifically. Good hack, even better boot. Palos, however, has the extra jump and will indeed recover themselves. Coalescence is indeed dedicated. You said it. It is a very dangerous subject, though. And the Dragon Blade thrown to the back line. It'll find one, make it 2 players in the process. But he does finally get shut down. Gangnam falling, though, that just spells a recontest later on. They have to disengage.
Yeah, have to get out the blade. And honestly, 3 ults were used from Ushi's.
Yeah, you're fine with that.
Blake, like you said, they lose the point, but they do gain that ultimate advantage now going into this next fight. But can you actually capitalize on it? That is the thing that they've not been able to do this map when they get into these advantages, as Gangnam is already scouting on point and gets the hack on JQ.
Is there, and the translocate out is as well. Finn is down. This is the greatest possible start. They still have not pressed Q. The problem is you lose Gangnam, but not all that consequential at the end of the day. The hunt down to the Sojourn, and the Death Blossom used. It'll find 2 in the back line. That should cap things for plate group, but a little bit more expensive than they wanted it to be.
Yeah, they had to pop it, though, because they lose Gods and Coda during that fight. If you at least keep one of them alive, you think, hey, we can win this mid-fight still and be fine. But without those healers available, you know, hey, we just gotta go. Tree doesn't want to test it too much. They at least win the fight, but maybe more, like you said, than they were looking to use. But now EMP on the table.
EMP is available. They can just slow things down and wait for Ushi's daycare to push. Wait for possibly an overclock to be dedicated as well. There's the jump in the back line. They don't want to wait whatsoever. Hack is there onto the Sojourn, who can't expend that overclock right away. They will have the availability to use it. They decide not to do so, and they'll be hunted down the back line. There's the EMP, while everybody else is otherwise occupied. It seems like a more than successful one to write home about. They will indeed find 3, make it 4, if not a pseudo team kill 5th for Piper to back away. And it'll be a very labored touch as well.
Yeah, but again, for Ushi's, you don't use anything, right? Like, you don't use any ultimates during that fight. You are trying to play the long game. They should be able to touch. And if they win this fight, and if they flip it early enough, this may honestly be the final fight.
This could be it. They do miss a couple opportunities, but the commanding shout sets things up, vibing low HP. There goes a Dragon Blade, but the Sound Barrier does directly counter it and forces the disengage from Palos as they're caught with the Coalescence. Low HP, they're dispatched of, and everything starts to go the way of plate group. Yes, the rush is used, but into everything, they've lost too much for it to be a sustainable factor. Good usage of the cleanse, the Suzu effective, but not the deciding factor, and it's a tunnel vision of Finn that is extremely successful for plate group. A pseudo C9, but not really an impactful one. They would have won the point anyway. Plate group start their reverse sweep in the middle of Ushi's daycare's reverse sweep.
Yes, and that was a beautiful fight there from plate group. That Coalescence just keeps Palos just far enough away where they can't finish off Coda, and they can't actually survive from it either. They get taken out. Perfect execution there from the Coalescence, already a third of the way to another one. And plate group, they will be at least somewhat near the point first, or Ushi's will try and catch someone off before they actually make it through.
Again, overclock available for Ushi's daycare. So too is their Sound Barrier, should it be needed as a last-ditch effort. It will be, and it's really just to disengage safely, much less re-engage as a team. They just totally back away. Primal's forced for by Polar Bear, but they stay alive, and that's the more important aspect of this. They also cap first, so keep that in mind. This timer is ticking in the favor of plate group, but they will lose that Primal Rage, and by Polar Bear caught in the back line for the dash in by Palos. Death Blossom finds only damage, but actually does turn into 1 kill, and they'll be able to follow up onto Finn, who is hacked in the process. Yes, again, they have to press Q a few more times than they'd like, but they force out Overclock, Sound Barrier, and they win the fight in the middle of capturing the point.
Piper might be kicking themselves a little bit there. They might have accidentally booped its tree into Moririx in the back line. That's a little unfortunate. I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the fight.
What?
But no, they're gonna try and hunt down by Polar Bear again, but they won't be able to finish them off. And I can't play group just being so aggressive.
There's just W King, and you can't really blame him. You find a hack, you find a susceptible Junker Queen, and now you have a low HP vibing on the Sojourn, who's lucky to currently be alive. Finn in the same boat, they're hacked again. They're being hunted down by a small army of very angry Queen's favorers, and it's working. But by Polar Bear, they will fall. There will be a touch on the point, as Ruins is still very much in contention. And the return of the orb, its tree still wins the fight against Vibing, but they'll lose Gods. Their support line virtually gone, and they don't want to have to expend the Sound Barrier. Yes, they have it available, but no, they don't want to use it, and it doesn't seem like they'll have to. EMP will be the fight decider, and it will be Ruins capped for Plate Group. One final point to decide Suravasa and possibly a series.
All of a sudden, you know, we were talking about, hey, Ushi's in a, you know, a position here to finish this map off strong. This is what they needed to start the reverse sweep. They got to avoid getting the miniature reverse sweep at this point, as Finn will get staggered out here, and that is disaster going into this final point. It almost guarantees that Plate Group will be able to get that first initial cap, and Temple now will be the setting here to see if Ushi's falls, or if it will be the, you know, them trying to at least sneak their way back into this series to force Esperanza.
I don't know if Esperanza is very likely. Cap will most likely go to Plate Group, but Ushi's Daycare want to make sure it's a very labored cap if one's successful at all. No. Again, Plate Group will cap the point before the first fight even begins, and they still have Sound Barrier available. There goes the Rampage. It catches only by Polar Bear, and a Death Blossom now dedicated. It finds two in the back line. That's the fight done, dusted, and down the drain already. Plate Group make a statement, and it's one that they may very well close out Suravasa.
Disaster for Ushi's, but a beat goes in from Coda, even though Finn only hits one from their ultimate, but little did they know Palace is also popping Blade. As soon as they realize, hey, that didn't get the efficiency we needed, they pop it right away. So Coda denies both big win conditions for Ushi's Daycare, and now Tree just hiding in the backline, getting that information after the huge Death Blossom last fight.
We're basically in final fight territory. If Ushi's Daycare don't win this is over. This is how quick Suravasa can go. There's a jump in. Gods dies immediately. Sound Barrier dedicated as well. This will be Ushi's Daycare capping. The question is, how much does it cost them and how long does it take? Those are the two real discovery questions. The answer, not much and very little in that order. However, 95% Plate Group can wait almost a full minute and a half and still have some time to build up ultimates.
Yeah, they have the Coalescence to use this fight. They have the Primal Rage. The big thing in this coming fight, can Gangnam build this EMP? As long as they play safe, they live, but they build up that ultimate, they could easily win this map and finish off this series, seeing that the only ultimate that Ushi's has to work with is that Overclock and eventual rush.
Hole used very early, but the Suzu forced out extremely quickly. Primal Rage as well. This gives Gangnam and It Is Tree some time to build up ultimates of their own, and Finn will fall. Oh my goodness, the Achilles heel of Ushi's Daycare. They lose the Junker Queen, who could be the difference maker on a map like this, but everybody trading kills back and forth. Polar Bear still alive. That could be the difference maker, but by no means is it a guarantee. They'll try and jump on the Lucio. They will do so successfully, but they're being hunted down as well. Vibing will not be able to find the kill immediately, but they will at least be able to find the duel. Gangnam, a 1 versus 1! They end up closing it. Plate Group will 3-0 Ushi's Daycare, and Plate Group take the temple and they will worship their way to the top.
They deserve a king's feast at the Plate Group. What a turn of events at the end. Gangnam the hero, as it is such a scrappy fight at the end. The Overclock not used until later on to try and bring it back. And it's just not enough. The Sabra keeps lurking around, wins the 1v1, and after this map looked so good for Ushi's. These first two phases looked all Ushi's. And also Plate Group, they figure it out. They go off the Doomfist. They go back onto this Winston comp, and it wasn't perfect. It was scrappy, but they earned the 3-0 for the series. Tree, honestly, that was how they looked during parts of this map, just hurting themselves time after time. But all of a sudden, we have a new team in third place. What a performance from Plate Group. And we could be looking at a team that could make some noise later on this season.
We sounded like broken records. Oh, ultimate economy this, save the ult that, press Q here and there. But the real fact of the matter is, it was so impactful in each individual point because every single fight was really a coin flip depending on who had the ult available. Here, we'll watch Vibing's perspective the entire way through this fight, even with the overclock. They find an opening, they'll find help for a second. This was a great showing for them through and through. but by no means was it a guaranteed fight victory, and Gengham made sure of that. 7,800 damage, 23 eliminations, and 6 final blows on a primary Sombra, but through the rest of the game, they also played the Echo to start, and they understood it just wasn't as successful, so they swap after second point. So too does most of the team. Doomfist to Winston. They played a Bastion for a few seconds onto a Reaper, but it was mostly the Tracer Symmetra. And then you swap onto a Moira, you keep the Lucia, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Coda played great all series, and it wins you the series itself.
Yeah, we look at the Lucio comparison. We looked at it earlier. This time around, Piper has more heals. They have almost double the heals as Coda. But instead, the elimination's even in the favor of Piper. But this time around, it'll actually be Coda and their squad who take it. Just with that little bit of extra damage. 1,400 damage more for Coda. And it just made the small little difference. I think they're a little more cohesive on the second half of the map. But honestly, you look at the first half, and you look at the second half of Saravasa. Completely different performances from both sides. And we talked about it early on. The desk talked about it as well. We thought Ushi's would be more versatile and able to adapt because of what they showed. And in the end, it was actually the opposite. Play Group with those micro transitions and adaptations actually were the team who were able to change more often and honestly bring home one of the most impressive wins I've seen in a while.
Yeah, and just the variations they were able to bring, that was a difference maker. I think I brought this up the earliest stage of Blizzard World, or right before Blizzard World, is having more flexibility in the tank role. You can have flexibility across the rest of your team. I don't care. If you don't have flexibility in your tank role, which we really didn't see as much from Ushi's Daycare, you're not going to have flexibility as a team. They dedicate a little bit too much to the Junker Queen, and that's what ends up costing them. That variability at the end of the day, it goes to Plate Group. The predictions very much against them, but Hunter Tane, close but no cigar. Soav Dadan. I've never said their name fully before. They were the most correct on the prediction sphere. We'll send it over to the desk to wrap up this one. That is an insane 3-0 series from Plate Group. Desk, go ahead and take it away.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, Sam unfortunately couldn't stay with us until the end. So the other Sam, Soav Danam, will be here. And I mean, it was a great match, but Svesatron, I can already see, is trying to, he's starting, he's keeping his promise. And I mean, look, as the person who was right on the desk and printed it, Svesatron, obviously you're hungry. Talk to me, man. Come on, where are we going? Why are we eating the hat? What's going on?
Okay, so my prediction was 3-1 to Ushi's, and I felt that, their level of play, their peak was really high. They got great compositions, but I don't know what to describe that as anything other than a bag fumble of generational proportions. I mean, they are up 2-0. They're up 2-0. They have 19 final blows on pallets in that final map, and they just decide, no, actually, I don't want to win. That sounds like too much fun. I'm just going to decide to not play anymore. And, via some, I don't know, an off switch on the entire team bar Palas, they lose. I mean, it was an actual deadlift. 19 final blows onto Palas, 17 onto the rest of Ushi's. How does that happen? How do you lose that? How do you lose that? And the thing that really gets my goat, the thing that really cooks my curry, is that, I mean, there are so many opportunities throughout the entire series where they have advantage. They take good fights. They perfectly stage a dive. They take a really strong Queen engage. And then as soon as they have ultimates in their hand, it's like they simply decide that they don't want to win anymore. And they start just throwing them out for no good reason. Some of these ult cycles, you could genuinely, I don't understand. I'm gonna eat my hat now.
Hunter, I mean, we've heard the mold. We've heard the molding take. Let's get a more lucid, reasonable here. Hunter, what happened? What went wrong here?
Okay, so I mean, the major thing we kind of look at is they got used to running this Junker Queen style comp, especially when we get over to Saravasa, where it's a really good comp to run. And they're for a while, it seemed like, okay, we like the way they're playing it, but we were all in here talking about it. They played it in one of the most passive ways possible you can play Junker Queen. And this is coming from someone who has had a coach screaming in my ear the past 4 weeks about how passive I play tank. When I see it, I start to mull up a little bit. But I'm not going to get Dispatchion's degree. I'm going to let them stay in their camp. But just, I wanted to see more aggression from this team, in a situation where they should have been the better team in terms of their composition. But somehow, Play Group, they make the Ana Brig work to pretty good succession. It's just, maybe, I don't know if it comes down to the comfortability, or if we want to take it a step further, just the cohesion of the team as a whole, because there were times where Ushi's Daycare, they had a ton of these fights won, and it just feels like they didn't follow through on the advantage that they were given. Meanwhile, Playgroup, you know, they make some ballsy dives, but they follow through and they're confident that they're going to get those kills. So whether it comes down to confidence, whether it just comes down to that cohesion I mentioned, just Playgroup seems to have a little bit more of it.
I think you've nailed it, is the confidence factor of Playgroup in a lot of ways, because Bipolar Bear, we were kind of joking about it initially in these first two maps, but Bipolar Bear just always full sent those dives and really just committed into whatever it is, even into this comp. You know, the Junker Queen, this very passive comp, like you said, they just full sent into it. There was no fear. There was trust in that. And, you know, eventually, yeah, they fumbled a little bit into, you know, the Doomfist comp and didn't quite get there, but they found what worked. And I mean, yeah, I don't blame you guys, but look, even as you guys can attest to this, even backstage when I was looking at this, even I was, oh gosh, that hurts to look at. Even backstage, I was kind of, you know, are they really going to do this? Am I actually right? Because even I fully didn't believe, looking at the matchups, it didn't quite make sense. So, I mean, especially, like, talk to me here, because at the end of all of this, you know, now we see Playgroup now is the number 2. I mean, if you're Ushi's Daycare, what's the biggest concern going into the midseason playoffs?
I think that in terms of your individuals, they're kind of fine for the most part. I think we can all agree Vibing maybe didn't have the series that he expected, that he wanted to have, but I think the rest of them acquitted themselves pretty reasonably. I think that Vibing on a better day probably can also have a lot more impact. Unfortunately, just that wasn't there today. I think that the real big issue that was consistently, you know, shooting them in the foot was those ult plays I spoke about earlier. Just consistently a little bit out of sync, and I think with a little bit better planning, then they would have had some pretty consistent wins over Playgroup. I mean, a couple of alley-oops that they unfortunately weren't able to connect, and if that's able to be sorted out for, you know, that next game, then I think that they will have a much better chance against pretty much anyone. But, I mean, if I was a coach for Ushi's Daycare right now, I would be having an absolute field day.
I mean, we know Playgroup is having a positive field day on the other side. So, I mean, now with Playgroup taking that number 2 seed, you know, you're pretty relieved, right, Hunter? Like, you're feeling pretty good. You don't have to face the Pumpkins in that number 1 seed. So, like, do you think now they're ready to come back and take the number 1 seed by storm here in the midseason playoffs?
Yeah, I do think they can to a considerable degree. I would make the point that for Ushi, it would have been an even better experience for them if they have won. Like I said, they would go up against Munich, a team that they literally just beat a couple weeks ago. So you have that going for you, and you take that confidence directly into Pump Kings. But now this time, Munich is going to go up against Playgroup, who, again, they haven't fought each other. They're not experienced against each other. So it's the situation where you're going against the evil you don't know versus the evil you do. So it's not better by that standard, but the standards of course, you're facing the team that is definitively weaker than Pumpkin, so you 100% have to be happy with that. You take that confidence of beating a team that was doing pretty good for themselves, and let alone in 3-0 fashion, you have no choice but to be confident about it.
I agree with you completely. Let's double check though, get a reminder for everybody who might just be joining us a bit late, what those Preds from the desk and the casters look like, because, unfortunately, it's just kind of the way it's going to be. And, you know, this was the initial 4, mind you. You know, 3 of our desk, including Sam Talks, picking the Daycare. Unfortunately, they're going to go back to Daycare for that, and myself having picked the plates. I mean, especially you kind of, myself and, sorry, Time to Late, who picked picked our winners today. Especially, I mean, you're hurting here. You were the one that said, look, I'm going to go 0-2. You called it. I mean, come on, did you just curse yourself there? Like, how did you predict the wrong team again? What happened? Come on.
I don't know. Someone said no, is what I'm saying. I mean, I have no idea. I was so confident going in. I was like, yeah, I'll eat my hat going into it, and now it's here, and it's not good. It's not clean. I'll put it that way. So, I mean, unfortunate for me, I'm now 0-2. Oh, good God!
Shout out to
Okay,
our
I
boy
see how it
Dex.
is.
Sorry guys, but
Dex
no.
Airball Prediction Awards. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm gonna own that one, I think.
Oh goodness, the airball prediction for the next airball prediction award. Yeah, I love it. That's a great award. I mean, and unfortunately, that's just most of our desks, so that's the way it is. But guys, you know what isn't the airball? There's one player throughout all this that definitely slam dunked it home, and that's our MVP. Hunter, tell the people who is our MVP that we kind of came to the conclusion of.
Yeah, we talked about it for a little while, but it became so definitive going into that third map. It has to go to Bipolar Bear. So consistent on that Winston. Did some pretty decent things on the Sigma initially. Just, we go back to that factor of confidence. You might say, oh, Bipolar, a couple of their jumps, they were kind of feeding. again, that's the confidence that the other team didn't have. Bipolar kept going and kept having confidence, and more often than not, they got away with the kills that they needed. They're very consistent about it too. Never really had a map where we're like, that didn't really look that good. And you know, I will give credit because I'll be the one to call it out. Credit over to Palaz over from Ushi's. Had a breakout performance, was lovely, but that consistency from Bipolar Bear, that's something that you don't see that often. And I don't know, it's exciting to see that kind of level of the Winston gameplay, because as much as man, where am I going with this?
This is just keep going. No, it's all good.
No, but it's good.
I see Spence looks ready to jump right in. It looks like he's got some things to say.
I was going to say that, I didn't think we saw consistency out of Bipolar Bear. I think it was very feast or famine, as per their name, but I think that the feast was pretty high, honestly. Every time those deep jumps going in, it was basically a fight win. And, when they went in maybe a little bit early, obviously it doesn't have the same success, but honestly, they were, I think, a lot fewer than they kind of expected. So a couple very questionable jumps, but other than that, you're finding a lot of impact. So Bipolar Bear definitely deserves the MVP. The Monkey was incredibly played. And especially what we saw some very passive play out of their opponents, and the same could not be said of Bipolar Bear. As you mentioned, full sending it every time, and it is that level of commitment that eventually kind of does, separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to Overwatch players.
Especially in regards to, looking at the backline. We had that question. They love to play Ana. Can you really escape with Ana Brig? And we were kind of sweating in the back here when they pulled out the Ana Brig, but they made it work. And especially when you look at, those changes that have come through to both of those heroes. Yeah. I mean, I think it really does speak to not just Bipolar Bear, but the trust of the backline and the communication. You need your IGL to be an incredible tank player and know and commit and feel confident. And it clearly showed through the rest of it. So kudos to Bipolar Bear and the rest of the squad for taking it there. But hey, I mean, this was week 4. There is big important things ahead here because we have got the mid-season tournament coming up here. I mean, let's jump over and check at that because we already kind of established, we had seen, all of our teams that were kind of going to be in the top 4. But when you look at this bracket right now, like this is, we knew this was going to be here, but this is not how I think we all expected this to play out.
No, absolutely not. Of course, we do have Pumpkins at the very top, but this game did not go nearly as close as we expected it to. I mean, I think just a little bit of a slip up there, and now that does mean that, of course, Ushi's is going to be, I think, 4th place. They are be able to make it into the playoffs, but by the absolute skin of their teeth, and I think we've mentioned before, but a first round into Pumpkins, it's not what you love to see. It's going to be David and Goliath scenario in that first round there, and of course, it does mean that they will be able to dodge that same matchup will their opponents. So, I mean, not what we expected to see, but it's kind of what we're left to stick with now.
Hunter, we're jumping over to NA because we've got the NA FNO coming up next week. And I mean, we kind of know how this is going to play out. We're going to see Mischievous Boxes and Sea Demons coming up later. And I mean, looking ahead, I think we saw Mischievous Boxes last week even. So, I mean, you got any insight on us for the FNO match tonight? Anything? Did you keep up anything? I know I'm putting you on the spot for this.
You got me on the spot. I mean, Mischievous Boxes, I think there's a level of consistency that they have. So again, here's the thing. So if I always say the word "it should be a close match" or the words "it should be a close match." Clearly, that didn't happen today. So I think I'm going to enter the zone of no comment because I don't feel like caster cursing another 3-0.
It's going to be so one-sided. It's going to be the most one-sided game imaginable. Getting it in now.
I can never be right.
The reverse curse.
Nah, it's all good. But that is going to be all here from your EU FNO today. I have been subbed in. I'm Specitron. Any final words for the wonderful people out there?
Angela Merkel is crying in her retirement home after the German team lost there. We will see you guys next time.
Hunter, thoughts from me? Any last words for the people?
Go watch NA Overwatch. I really hope it's not another 3-0, and if it is, you can ping Dexatron on Twitter if you have any issues with the upcoming NA matchup, so you can go there for all of your issues. So
just ping Dexatron because don't even if you have nice things, if you have bad things, just ping it. Just ping him on Twitter and just yell things at him. It's okay, he'll understand. But from myself, Sam Talks, and the rest of the crew behind the scenes, Hippie Bailey, who else is there? Loser Orange, Time to Light and Salty from the rest of the crew here. Thank you all for joining us for the EU FNO, and we will see you next week for even more incredible Overwatch.
Be